Alright, sorry, I had to stop and restart the video. Somebody knocked on my door trying to sell me something. Okay, so the third step is revise. And what this means is that basically you're going to read your composition draft with your reader in mind. Okay, so think about what somebody else would think as they were reading what you wrote. And here are some kind of questions you can ask yourself during this step. Are ideas in a logical order? Is there enough information for everything to make sense, or do you need to add some information in? And are there extra bits that are unnecessary, distracting, and need to be cut out? Okay, so maybe you thought something needed to be in there when you were writing it, but then when you're reading it again, thinking about somebody else reading it, you think, oh, this would probably bore them, or it's confusing because it's not necessary to the story or to my argument or whatever you're trying to write. So the next step is editing, and I wanted to say right now that revision and editing are very different things. You might have heard teachers lump them together, or maybe you in your own mind have lumped them together, but they're very different. Revision, I want you to think about, is about ideas, okay? Changing ideas. All right, moving ideas in different order, taking ideas out, adding ideas in. It's more about that, okay? Whereas editing is about these things here. Editing is finishing, polishing, little finishing touches and polishing it up, okay? That means making sure your grammar is in place, okay, and makes sense and follows the rules of standard grammar as you understand them. You're spelling things correctly. Thankfully, you'll be drafting and editing in a Google Doc, and of course you know when that little red squiggly line goes underneath, that means you need to pause and check that, and if you don't know how to use that function, ask me please and I'll let you know. Capitalization. One thing that Google Docs does not correct is if you put a lowercase I by itself, like if you're talking about yourself and you said, I went to the store, if you left it lowercase, oftentimes it will not correct it for you unless that changes by the time you watch this video. So that's a capitalization you are going to have to be very aware of and make sure you make those changes yourself. But of course, any proper noun in the first letter of every sentence should always be capitalized. Punctuation, okay, making sure every sentence at the end is punctuated. You have commas in the right places and not in the wrong places, things like that. And of course, I'm here to help you with that. And formatting. So if you've heard of MLA formatting, we'll talk about that a lot this year. And so if you don't know what that is, don't worry, I'll tell you later. But that's a type of formatting, so making sure that your essay follows all of those rules, or otherwise, if you're not writing for a formal essay for me, you might not be writing it in MLA format, but you still want to make sure that it's all the same font, size, and style, and things like that. Okay, so that's editing. And then the next step would be to publish. And I would guess that this gets skipped way too often in school. Because I know that when I was in school, I was never ever focusing in a class on publishing. Of course, I didn't take like a newspaper class or anything cool like that, and that's all about publishing. But if you're writing for an English class, or even in a different content area such as history, oftentimes your only audience is your teacher. Okay, publishing is all about seeking a greater audience, and there's lots of ways you can do that. You can publish it to a personal blog. You can submit it to a newspaper for publication. That could be the Wichita Eagle, which is a physical paper newspaper, or Kansas.com, which is their online affiliate. You could publish to Goodreads, which is a website all about book reviews, where people write and comment on book reviews. You could publish to Voices of Kansas, which is something that I would like to help you do this year. And I'll tell you more about what that is later. But basically, in a nutshell, it is local students and high school students in Kansas and middle school students in Kansas submit things to get published. And I know the editor personally and can send things in that way. And I put etc. because there's lots of ways to publish, especially now for you compared to when I was in high school. Writing is published online constantly. And so you can also suggest other ways for us to publish as a class, and I can continue to research and find interesting ways for you to find a bigger audience for your writing than just me. It's a little bit boring to always be writing to the same person. All right, so let's talk about significance. Okay, that was that last step in our learning target, is explaining the significance, or one of the last steps. Why do we need this writing process that I just went through very briefly? Well, as you probably know, writing is hard, and that's not just true for you. It's true for me. It's true for professional writers and all different types of jobs. But anything that's difficult should be broken down into manageable steps so that you can do it and you can do it well. Okay, so that's why we have a process, for one thing. Because it is difficult, doing it well is very rewarding. So don't be intimidated because it's hard. Just break it down, work the steps, work the process, and then you're going to find it very rewarding when you're done and you've written something you're excited about. Okay? Why else do we need it? Well, here's an analogy I always like to share with students. Writing is like cooking. If you don't plan ahead and ensure you have all the ingredients, and if you don't taste and adjust based on how it tastes as you go, you're going to end up cooking something that no one, including you, will want to eat. Okay? So if you think about cooking, even if you don't cook yourself, but you watch cooking shows, okay, they have at first what they call the mise en place. Okay, you hear them talk about that a lot on cooking shows, or maybe you're in a cooking class and you know this, but you have to check to see what you're trying to cook and what all ingredients you need for it. Okay, that could be like your brainstorming and your planning. Okay, but then as you're drafting and after you draft, okay, that's when you need to be tasting. And based on how it tastes, okay, you need to make changes and adjustments. Okay, so always keep that in mind. And if you hear me say something like taste your writing, okay, that's what I mean. I mean that you need to think about, will anybody want to eat this? Will anybody want to read what I'm writing? And you want to do, again, something that you're proud of. One note about this writing process: it is not a one-way street. You are going to need to backtrack and repeat steps, and that is okay. And also sometimes you'll find yourself doing more than one step at a time, and that's okay. Sometimes I'm making edits and revisions as I'm drafting the first time. Okay, it doesn't mean that that's the only time I'm going to edit and revise. I'm going to do more thorough edits and revisions afterwards, and sometimes I edit and revise several times. And the thing about the things that you write is that they're never done until you decide that you're done working on it. Okay, but you can always go back and make edits and revisions. The things that you write are alive. I want you to think about it that way. It's a living document that you are constantly working on and tweaking and changing until you feel satisfied with it. And if you're an artist, you can understand that this is very similar to that sort of thing. If you're making a painting, for example, you decide when you're going to stop adding paint to it, and when you're going to stop making changes, and when you're going to stop making revisions. Okay, it works the same way. So this was just in a brief nutshell, in 2 videos for your viewing pleasure, what the writing process is and a little bit about its significance. But we're going to break these down further in a few different ways further on in the playlist.